for attending, everybody. Just a few housekeeping rules before we start. So all attendees will be on mute and will remain on mute for the whole webinar. Please use the question box to ask any questions related to the topic, and we'll answer them after the demo. If we run out of time, or if the answer requires a longer one for the question, then we'll answer that directly offline. Use the chat box for any questions, so for anything like you can't hear us or the presenter's going too fast. And please note that we will be sending a link to view the webinar recording after the demo. Okay, so my name's Karen and I'll be facilitating the demo today. I'm an account manager here at T-Vision. I've worked here for about 2 years. My background is 18 years of software account management experience working for ERP companies. Ian will be doing the demo today, and he's a support consultant here at T-Vision, and he's been working here for about 3 years and has been using NAV since 2000. There are 2 methods that you can use for managing fixed assets and depreciation in NAV or Business Central. These are through journals or through sales and purchasing. If you have experienced finance users who use journals regularly, then this might be the preferred method. It's also good if you would prefer not to record the fixed assets on the GL. However, it is a more manual method. If you currently use NAV or Business Central for doing purchase orders and invoices or sales orders and invoices, then it's very quick to start using that method for fixed assets as well. And the benefit of this method is that the standard processes are followed, and the system will automatically calculate any gains and losses for approvals as well. It also posts to the GL, so you can see the true value of a fixed asset and the impact on the company. Hopefully after this webinar, you'll be able to decide which method is going to be best for your company. Okay, so the top 5 things that we're going to show you about fixed assets and depreciation today are, first of all, take on or disposal. So this is the first stage of setting up the asset that you've recently acquired, or the process of selling an existing asset. Next is how to set up the method of depreciation, so it could be straight line or diminishing value. There are about 5 standard ones available in the system. Then we'll show you how to revalue the asset, as some may increase over the years, for example, property. And some assets can also be split up into individual assets and have their own value and depreciation. So, for example, a truck could be split into a hoist, a tow bar, and a main vehicle. Then we'll do the other way around. You can enhance an asset by adding to it and creating a bigger one. So, for example, adding a new machine to a production line. Okay, before the poll, we would like to gauge your usage of fixed assets and depreciation in NAV or Business Central. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to launch the poll, and if you wouldn't mind submitting your answer, that would be brilliant. Okay, just going to wait for people to start submitting. Okay, responses are coming in, that's great. So we'll just give people a little bit more time to have a look at what the answers are and which one they are going to choose. Okay, just give a couple more seconds. Okay, so that's interesting. So the top one, it says that we use fixed assets in NAV and BC. It's fully integrated with the GL, that's around 70%, and then 30% are saying that we record them in Excel or the external system. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Ian for the demo.
Hi everyone. For today's demo, I'm using a very recent Business Central. It's 13, so I'm using the Windows client as if I was on premise. So it looks very familiar to anybody who's using a later version of NAV as well. Remember, if you're using Business Central SaaS or you're using the web client, your screen will look different to mine, but you'll have basically the same information. It's just laid out differently. The menus have gone to the top, the ribbon has disappeared, but everything is still there. It's just where it's on the screen that's changed. So first things first, I've logged in, and I've logged in as an accounting manager, just to make life easy for myself. If I want to start working on fixed assets, if I want to use the menus, I can go to departments, financial management, fixed assets, and here's pretty much all the tasks that I might want to use. If I don't have the menus, I could always just go up to the top and search for fixed assets, and it will pretty much bring me to this exact same suite of menus. Right, so first things first, you have your fixed assets. This company, we've got a few cores, a bit of equipment, a lift and switchboard, and then please ignore those two, those were me practicing yesterday. And we want to buy a new fixed asset. Let's do it from scratch. We're going to buy a new company car. I won't use a Ford Focus again. We'll use a Ford Mondeo, for example. So starting from scratch, I'm going to go to new. I'm going to create my new fixed asset. It's going to be a Ford Mondeo. I give it a class. It's a tangible asset. I give it a subclass. When my mouse decides to work. And my mouse is frozen. No. Oh, there we go. It's a car. I can give it a location if it's going to be in a certain part of my factory. I can give it a serial number, the registration number of the car, for example. I can assign it to a responsible employee. All fantastic. And then the important bit down here. Once we've taken on this asset, which depreciation book are we going to use? I've only set up one, but you can set up multiple depreciation books in your company if you want to. What's the posting group going to be? I've selected core by default. And what's the depreciation method? As Karen said, there are half a dozen to choose from. Straight line and the diminishing balances are quite common. Very rare for people to use manual. When is my asset going to be taken on? And let's take this asset on the 1st of December 2019. And we're going to depreciate it over 3 years. And pretty much that's all I have to do for my initial setup. So I say, okay. Now my choice comes, I want to physically take on that asset and give it a value. I've got two choices. I could go to a fixed asset journal, and I can create a journal from scratch, putting in all the accounts that I want it to hit and all the values. If that is where you want to go, you're probably a very strong finance user, so I'm not going to bore you with details of how that works. But if you're one of those companies that maybe using spreadsheets to record your fixed assets, you're not quite sure about doing the fixed asset journals, there's a nice easy way of doing it. If you use purchase orders, you can actually use a purchase order to take on your fixed asset. So let's go and do that. We'll go and buy this fixed asset. So I'll create a new purchase order, and it is popping up on my other screen. Who am I buying it from? Let's buy it from the London Postmaster. We have to put in the document number. And instead of buying an item or buying against a GL account, we choose to buy a fixed asset. Which fixed asset do we want to buy? This Ford Mondeo that we just set up. How many of them do we want to buy? Just the one. And it's going to cost us, I don't know, let's say £6,000. And that's it. Now we're using our standard already existing purchase orders. We're using our existing processes. So if I'm at a company where approvals are required for purchasing, I can still use my approval process and get this approved, etc. I haven't set up approvals yet. I'm just going to post this, and I'm going to say that we've received the vehicle. And now if I come back and I go and look at my fixed assets again, we will see that Ford Mondeo, it now has a book value of £6,000. It's been taken on by the system. The system created those journals in the background for you so that you didn't have to figure out what goes where. As we're going through, I'm going to click on this so we can see a history. What typically happens, as the months go by, each month we post a depreciation for this vehicle. Let's assume we've been naughty and we haven't been posting the depreciation. It's now a year later and somebody picks up, oh, we forgot to do the depreciation. So let's do a whole year's worth of depreciation. So from this menu, I can search for a periodic activity called Calculate Depreciation. You can also search for it up in the search box. So this is a nice little job. It's just going to ask us a few questions. Which depreciation book? As I said, you can split up into multiple depreciation books. What's the date we're going to post this depreciation? Let's make it the 30th of November 2020. We've gone for a year. 30th of November 2020. We'll give it a new document number. And we will pretty much, if we leave this field blank, it's going to post for all of my fixed assets in the company depreciation book, or we can choose just to post it for the one fixed asset. I'm just going to do this one to save time. I say OK, and it hasn't created a journal lines for me. I'm not going to try and debug why it didn't create the journal lines for me. But basically, what I would do after that step, I'll probably put in a bad date. On the GL journal, it would have created the lines for me here. And I know what I did wrong. When I created my purchase order, it was probably dated in 2021 or something. That's why it can't find any depreciation for 2020. It would have created a journal and I would have been able to post the depreciation here. So what I'm going to do now, figuring out what was wrong, I'm just going to put the date. I actually use the 31st of December 2022. And I'll do the same thing here. 2022, I'll say OK. It's going to create a journal for me. And it's created the journal, and because it was such a long time in the future, it's figured out it's beyond those 3 years, so it's done the full £6,000 worth of depreciation. It's now up to me to post this journal, so it hasn't changed anything for me. I still have to physically post this journal. If I disagree with these numbers, I can change them. So I'm going to pretend that I just did 1 year's worth of depreciation, which was £2,000. And I'll do £2,000 down here as well. And I will post this. I'll post the journal lines, yes. It's posted. We can come back, we can look at that fixed asset. And when I look at him, we will see his book value has gone down to £4,000. If we click on that number, the initial take on of 6,000, the depreciation of 2,000. On any of these transactions, we can always navigate and we can see exactly where the postings have gone in our GL to keep track and make sure that everything's hunky-dory. Now let's assume that we've come to the end of the life of this vehicle. We're going to sell him. Remember, he's worth £4,000. Let's, instead of creating another journal, which we could have done in the first place, let's use our existing functionality and let's use a sales order to dispose of this fixed asset. So we'll create a new sales order. For some reason, everything's opening on my other screen. And we'll sell it to Selangorian. I'm happy with all this. What are we selling them? We are selling them a fixed asset. Which fixed asset are we selling to them? We're selling the Ford Mondeo. Just the one, and we're going to sell it to them for £3,000. So remember, its book value is 4,000. We're selling it to them for 3,000. And once again, we're using our standard functionality. If I have to send it off for approval, I can still do that here. I'm just going to post this one so we can see what happens to our fixed asset. Oh, because I've disposed it, I need to change ourselves to a date well into the future. Post. I don't want to open the invoice, and let's go back and Whoopsie, I closed my entire session. Let me just reopen it. I do tend to do that sometimes. I hit the cross on the top instead of hitting OK, and I close down my entire system. So go back in, go to financial management, go to my fixed assets, look at my fixed assets. And when we have a look at this Ford, we can see it now has a book value of 0. So there was the initial take on of 6,000. We did some depreciation for 2,000. We then sold the vehicle for 3,000, which left us that 1,000 difference, which has automatically gone to my gains and losses account, and the asset and depreciation have been taken off the books. So that's basically the life cycle for a very simple asset. Using a purchase order to take it on, using the calculate depreciation tool to do the depreciation for me. It just creates a journal for me to post. And then using a sales order to sell that asset, and it figures out gains and loss, and it disposes of the asset from my general ledger. So nice and simple. You could have done that through journals, but that's hard work. If you do want to go that way, you probably know what you're doing, so I'm not going to preach to you. Now, one of the interesting things, when I was posting, it was posting to the general ledger. You don't have to post your fixed assets to the general ledger. So if I come down to my depreciation books, I've got my company depreciation book. When I set this up, I set it up and I put in all the ticks to integrate my fixed assets into the general ledger. So every time I post something as a fixed asset, it is affecting my general ledger balances. If you turn off these ticks, then it's as if you're keeping your fixed assets as a separate register that is not impacting your general ledger. So this is similar to recording your assets on a separate spreadsheet. So although it's on NAV or Business Central, it's not impacting my GL. I can keep track of my assets, and I would have to do a manual journal in my GL each month or each year to say these are the value of my assets. That's a choice you can make. To me, it's easier if you turn on the integration. It just means that you can use all of the existing tools, and it leaves less manual work for yourself. Two other things that Karen mentioned was changing the value of fixed assets. So you might have a fixed asset such as some land and property, which has gone up in value, and you want to reflect this in your books. That is quite easy. You simply need to do a periodic activity called a reclassification. Nope. A fixed asset GL journal, and within a fixed asset GL journal, you give it your posting date, you leave the document type blank, you say it is for a fixed asset, which fixed asset you are revaluing. Let's revalue our switchboard. And here you get a lot of options. So if my switchboard has gone down in value or it's gone up in value, let's assume it's gone down in value by an extra £500 above and beyond depreciation. I say it's a write down. I say how much it's gone down by, £500. And then if I've done my setup correctly, I insert the balancing account, and it knows which GL account to post these write downs and revaluations to. And it's a simple matter of then posting this journal. If the value had gone up, I would have put an appreciation in here instead of a write down. And it's going to check. If I put a positive 500, it would have told me, nope, you have to put in a negative number, but it was obviously happy with what I did. And once again, if we go back and we have a look at that switchboard fixed asset, we will see its value from its initial take on all the various depreciations, I've written down its value by £500. So this is a manually revaluing an asset. It can either be a write-down or an appreciation. The final thing that I wanted to speak to you about was splitting assets or combining assets. So Karen gave a very nice example. You have perhaps bought a truck, and on that truck is a winch. You're not using the winch, you want to sell the winch, but it's part of your fixed asset. How do you do that? You would pretty much come in, you would create a new fixed asset for the winch, you give it a name, and then once you've got that fixed asset created, you would do the entries that you need through a reclassification journal. So reclassification journals always need a date. You need to give them a document number, and you say which fixed asset are you affecting, and you choose your vehicle. You'd say it's going to the new fixed asset, the winch fixed asset, and you can then say what percentage of that vehicle's value do you want to move to the new fixed asset, or you can say what value. So if you know the winch is worth exactly £500, you could say £500. You reclassify, it creates a journal for you to post, which will take the value of your truck down by £500 and take on your new winch asset with a value of £500. You could then sell that winch, dispose of it, or you can depreciate it at a different rate than you're depreciating the vehicle, etc. And you can use this reclassification journal to take one asset and split it into two assets. You can also use it to take two assets and split them into one new asset. So, for instance, you've bought a machine and you've bought a conveyor belt. You want to weld them together and turn it into one big super machine. You could use a reclassification journal saying which two sub-assets are going to become a new big asset. Click reclassify, it will create a journal for you to move those around to create your new super fixed asset. As Karen was saying, there's some choices that you need to make. If you've never used fixed assets on your system before, you might want a little bit of help doing the initial setup. There is quite a bit of setup that needs sorting out. A lot of it is self-explanatory, but if you do need help, please give us a call. We'll happily help you. And also then deciding, do you want to integrate with the GL or do you want to keep your fixed assets separate from the GL? Remember, that's just turning on or off those ticks. But once you've made your choice, you don't want to be messing about with those ticks, so think carefully beforehand. And then finally, do you want to manage your fixed assets using the journals? If you're a big, nice, strong financial company, perhaps you do. If you're a smaller company or you don't want to spend time on those things, maybe you want to use your existing purchase order and sales order, and you can use your existing processes, your existing people. You don't really have to understand the intricacies of taking on and disposing of assets. Let the system sort that out for you. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Are there any questions before I go?
Okay, if you do have any questions about what you've seen or something that we haven't shown yet, if you could just put them into the question box. We'll just give you a little bit of time for that. I'll just see if anything's come in. So one of the questions is, we don't use purchase orders. Can we still use fixed assets?
Yeah, certainly. As I said, you can choose whether to use journals for your fixed assets or whether you want to use the sales orders and purchase orders. So the choice is yours there. And just because you're not using purchase orders to buy items and things like that, you have that functionality within your NAV or your Business Central system. So you can use purchase orders just to take on your fixed assets if you wanted to. So yeah, you've got the choice there. You can work either way.
Is there a set approval process you can use for fixed assets?
Well, obviously, if you use the purchase orders and sales orders, then you're using the approval process that you've already set up within your company. So everybody's got their approval limits and everybody has their approval manager. You can use that to manage taking on and disposing of your fixed assets. And with Business Central, every journal you can turn on an approval process if you wish to. So, even somebody who's posting the monthly depreciation, you can have the button at the top of the screen that says request approval before they're allowed to post it. Certainly.
Okay, that's great.
That's it. Fantastic.
Right, we then go back to presentation. So I'd like to leave you with the 5 key takeaways about fixed assets and depreciation, which we hope will assist you. So fixed assets are easy to manage in NAV and Business Central. A lot of people think it's difficult, but hopefully we've shown you how simple it is, and also the benefits of doing it in the software as opposed to separately on spreadsheets. Before you start using it, as Ian was saying, think of the level of your current users, how you currently manage products or services in the system, because both of these factors will help you decide which method is best for your company. There is a built-in job in NAV and Business Central to run once a month for calculating depreciation. Once you've set up a fixed asset and depreciation method, the system will calculate the depreciation for you and will create a journal for you to post. You can put dimensions against fixed assets, so you can track which cost centre, be it department or region, for example, that has the asset, and this will help to enhance your reporting and analysis. T-Vision is here to help you. So as Ian was saying, if you're not sure which method, or if you're currently using a method for fixed assets and it's not really working for you, please, just give us a call and we can help you with the setup. Okay, so we hope you found this webinar interesting and informative. As mentioned previously, this is the 20th in a series of webinars. We will be sending out emails soon for the next one. We'll also put a reminder in the newsletter, but please do remember that on the website under Learn, halfway down, if you click past webinars, all 20 are on there for you to view the recordings. Okay, so thank you for attending. When I close this webinar, a survey will appear, so if you want to add some feedback to that, that's great. But if you do have any questions, feel free to email us at marketing@tvisiontech.co.uk. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.